All right, and you are good to go.
All right, thank you so much, Eric.
Yep.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. I am Joanna Ogburn with the Annapolis Conservancy Board, and we are officially starting the meeting 5:30 on March 11th, the Annapolis Conservancy Board virtual meeting. And I guess let's start off with the approval of the Annapolis Conservancy Board minutes from January. And I wanted to see if anybody has any edits that they wanted to make. No?
I was fine with them. I'll move them just to start the process if you like.
I have just two little things I was gonna point out, Tammy, if that's all right. They're minor.
That's fine.
All right, I just had in the first paragraph about introducing Linda Frost as a new member, just to change AEC to ACB in the third line.
Oh my goodness.
Don't worry. It's minor. No biggie. And then I think under section 7 updates, under easement monitoring, just saying at the end, there's noted that there are still easements that need monitoring instead of touring. I guess touring is actually fine. It's not a huge.
Monitoring is fine too.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
Would you like me to move approval?
Yeah, and are you okay with approval with those suggested edits?
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
I'll second.
Oh.
All right, we have a move to approve with the edits suggested from Trudy and a second from Linda. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Oh, right. There's so few of us, I figured. Yeah, all in favor to pass with the suggested edits, say aye.
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 Okay, that's easy enough to do. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you, Karen. All right, so for today's meeting, I got into the spirit of things with the spring weather, and I figured it's a good time to do some spring cleaning, or really more of like a spring review, if you will. So taking a little bit of time to look at the procedures that we have in place, make sure they're still working for us, look at what procedures are missing that we need, and then plan out kind of some of the things that we want to focus on in our future meetings. How's that sound to you guys? Does that look okay?
Sure.
Okay, so to start off with the next agenda item, easement monitoring. So I wanted to check in on the process that we've been using over the last year, or maybe 2 years. As you all know, we try to monitor each of the easements held by the city of Annapolis and some of the properties owned by the city of Annapolis that are more natural. We try to monitor each of them every year using the easement inspection form that we have. And Linda, I can share that with you, and also taking a couple representative photos. And last time we talked about it, we thought it would make sense for individual board members to sign up and go out and individually monitor the easements, and to sign up for those monitoring responsibilities in September, and to complete the monitoring between September and December. But I wanted to check in and see, does that process still work for you guys? I think, most importantly, going out individually to monitor them, and then second, that time of year, does that still seem right for doing the type of work that we're trying to do?
The time of year was picked to be able to see without the leaves, to really see more. Was that right? Or not just to freeze us to death or anything?
Yeah, the purpose was not to be in the cold. That was it, but it does sometimes happen. But yeah, it was trying to see it after the leaves have started to come down. And I think typically, and Linda, jump in here, but I think usually it's that time of year, or it's sometimes between January and March are the other two times that folks do the monitoring.
Well, I'm being shy. Well, I'll speak up and say, I think the one person approach is very good. You don't have any downtime and I don't think the responsibility is so heavy that it takes two people to review it myself.
Okay.
That would be my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, Karen or Linda, any thoughts on that?
Linda
yeah,
probably
I mean-
hasn't done it yet, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I mean, Linda, if you want somebody to go out with you, you know, to the first one or two, we can definitely arrange that. It used to be that, like, when I first joined the board in 2007, they did it as a group on one day in the spring, but it became a problematic to get everybody's schedules coordinated. So I think this approach
Yeah.
works better because it's more flexible for people.
Joanne, my biggest issue with easements is I sort of feel like I don't really know what I'm supposed to look for. I mean, you know, I never find anything because I'm not sure I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I never found trash to be a problem. I'm not sure I would know what kind of weeds we approve of or disapprove of. You know, I think if anything, and I actually never heard the two pictures. I didn't know we were supposed to take pictures. So maybe just if we don't have it, just a little sheet of paper that tells us what to do, where to look, you know, just because we only do it once a year and I sort of forget how we're supposed to identify the boundaries and this, that, you know, I just think for me, that would help. It's not entirely clear to me what I'm supposed to look for.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get citizens on an advisory board who may or may not be experts. I don't know.
No, it's also, you know, we just do it one time a year. So I think that's part of it too. You know, we kind of talk about it, but then we don't think about it again for another year. Yeah, I think absolutely we could do that. Certainly as we get closer to the time frame, maybe, so it's fresh in our minds.
I think
Yeah, like at our September meeting, maybe we could do that. We could review what are the things we should be looking for. What things do you want to take out with you in the field? All those kinds of great things. No, I think that's a great idea.
And if every year you just, when we send out the chart to say, pick your sites, maybe that could just go with it as an annual tradition to remind us of the process, the dates by which you would like it, and certain, you know, certain things that just, I was thinking like of a one sheet, nothing terribly long or complicated, but.
Yeah, and I don't think it'd be super complicated. I think the tricky bits, you know, it's easy to look for to see if there's any new development, right? Or if somebody put something in that wasn't there before, those kinds of things. What's is a little bit harder, and I am not an expert by any means in identifying plant species. So I certainly know some of the most obvious invasive species, but I am not up to speed on all of them. So that's one of the ones I find a little bit harder for at least myself to do. So that might be some of the conversation we can have in September is, you know, how important is that versus some of these other questions, and if it is something, maybe we need to have like a little guide of the most important things to look for, you know, invasive species wise or something like that, so that all of us are on the same page. Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I know a few, and I can see when there's a problem, but I don't know all of them. That
I
are
recognize things like tires and
that would be, yes, that is one I can identify. I will say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just trash and encroachment from,
Yeah,
like, if somebody tries
do
to
too.
build structure in it or cut down trees. Like, I mean, if you know, if whoever's inspecting knows the invasives and can note that, that's great. But I don't think, to me, that's not the most important
I
thing.
agree. Yep.
So
No, I think
never
so,
forget
too.
that time, Karen, that we went out to look at the site behind the new senior housing and found it had become a tire dump site.
Yeah.
We knew we'd found something then.
Yeah. Yeah. You know when there's a big problem. That's
Yeah.
that's usually pretty evident. And like you said, Karen, I think the most important thing to be looking for. So no, that's a great idea, Trudy, and I'll put that on the list.
Thank you.
No, that's great. So one of the things that we are trying to work towards, and you know, Racine, I may reach out to you at times to ask for sort of your help on this, but is asking some city staff to update some of our easement maps to make it very, you know, clear where the boundaries are and where they're not, especially in some of our more complicated easements like Kingsport and those kinds of things. And one thing that I think I talked about with some folks at the planning staff is just trying to update like one per month or something like that, and starting with some of the trickier ones. Because I think that would be really helpful. Like Trudy is saying, it's nice when you go out in the field, if you have a pretty easy map to follow, to know where there should and shouldn't be, like a new fence or a new whatever kind of thing. And just to help clarify some of those kinds of issues. So that's one thing I think we're working on. I'll check in with the planning staff about that. But yeah, Racine, I don't know if there's, I guess there's not really a department for where you live. I'm not quite sure what the structure is. And I apologize for that. But if there's somebody else that we should be reaching out to.
No, it would be me. It would
Okay.
be me. My title hasn't changed, and
Okay.
I am the environmental programs coordinator. So what the board does sort of falls under the environmental piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can help you make contact with city staff and help you with that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. So we've got that we've talked about, that we're going to keep kind of pushing on. And then Linda last time mentioned, I took a little brief look at it, Linda. There's an app called Avenza. It's a maps app. You gotta put a lot of space in between those two words. A maps app. And yeah, so if that's something you're familiar with, Linda, maybe at a future meeting, if you want to give us like a little briefing, or it's okay. The mute thing always gets me.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of fancy things you can do with it, but I've used its most basic feature, which is we have, if you have someone create a map that actually is like a GIS person and puts it in a PDF and it has geo references, I think that's the term, in the PDF. You can, email it to yourself, have that app, pull it up on your phone, the map, and because it has those geo references in there, you can be walking around a property, looking at the map and where you are within the property boundaries.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so that's definitely something I think we can look at, and we'll have to see if that's like a paid app or if how that works.
It's free. I downloaded it.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sure there are fancier features, but that's the kind of a basic function.
Simpler the better. And that, I think that would be kind of helpful in some of ours, with some of our easements. And yeah, I know Sean can do the georeferencing thing. I used to, but not anymore. And yeah, I'll have to check, see if the planning staff can do that as well, because I think that would be really handy. So we've got those two things going on. Are there other pieces of information or things that you feel like we need to be able to do the monitoring? Anything else?
Clarifying in that sheet how we really feel about signs and where the supply, that's been sort of hit and miss when we discussed the signs a little bit, and just I'm still on the same topic, but just all the step-by-step stuff. Really, when we're out there, are we supposed to nail a sign to the tree if we don't see one, or what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, so Linda, there are little Annapolis Conservancy, I don't even know if it says Annapolis Conservancy boards on it, but we have these little metal signs that are attached on most easements, but over time some of them have fallen off, and I think I believe I have them in my closet. Brian gave them to me at one of the last meetings he attended in person with us, and so I have them. I don't. It's a great question.
You didn't find them in your spring cleaning?
Oh, I know where they are. Yeah, they occasionally fall on top of me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not being serious enough tonight. I'll behave.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Do we have baseline document reports for easement properties, or is that not something that you all do because they're not really tax deducted easement? Okay.
Yeah, they've never, to my knowledge, they've never been done. Karen, you can jump in here if you know of anything. But I've certainly never seen any, never heard about it.
I'm not sure what you mean exactly.
And this is something, if we look at more voluntary donations of conservation easements, you do at the time of accepting the easement donation, you do what's called a baseline documentation report. So you walk the property and just take photos, make notes of any improvements, sort of the existing site conditions at the time the easement is put in place. And that's sort of what you monitor against.
Yeah,
If
I don't
something's
think we
changed
have
over
anything
time.
like that for ours.
I've never,
We just
yeah.
have, like we have what it looked like, on the last
Yeah.
time it was monitored, but we
Yeah.
don't have what it looked like when it was accepted
Right.
originally. Yeah.
It is something that is keyed off of, it's a IRS requirement if you are accepting a donated easement. So if we look at that in the future, then that will become part of the, standard practice.
It's an interesting question, Lyndon. I wonder if there is a, so I think for any future easements going forward, it's not a bad idea to try to do something like that. It sounds like a lot. It can be a lot depending on, different agencies, different nonprofits write them differently. Some are much more involved. Some are
Right.
pretty basic.
Mhm.
I've done them before. You can do them very basic, but as Lyndon mentioned, just sort of taking key representative photographs sort of at each of your property lines and anything else feature wise within the property, and just describing basically what's going on, the time the easement is created. It is helpful, Trudy, as you were mentioning, to be able to look back and kind of compare, and see, is it the same? If it's different, is that okay?
Actually, I wonder, I don't know if it's worth asking the city staff to investigate whether they have that for any of them, because some of them were donated. I don't think for tax purposes necessarily,
Yeah, well,
but
maybe that.
it might be that they did get something and it's like on a shelf somewhere that everybody's forgotten about.
Yeah, let's ask.
So,
Um,
or, maybe the law office has something, or I don't know.
yeah.
Planning and zoning.
The other thing I'll see what you guys think about, and it's not something we would need to accomplish immediately, I don't think, but is this something that we should try to do for those easements that we already have? Obviously it's not a baseline report, but it's it's something we could create now at least.
Who cares about our easements? Who do they go to? Do they go to anybody? I mean, when we're all done and we've all filled out our pieces of paper, do they go to anybody, or are they?
The reports, you mean, that we fill out?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, there's some.
They were supposed to be scanned into e-track and kept with the deed, but I don't know if that's really been happening or not. But that was what Maria Broadbent had started doing that.
That's a neat idea. And I guess, Racine, that might be a question for you. You're going to regret being stuck with us. But so traditionally, Trudy I think Karen did the same thing. So I've certainly, every time that I get them from our board members and for myself, I would send them to Brian. And at that point, I don't know exactly where they would live. Somewhere at the city. I don't know if they were, maybe Racine knows.
I just, I remember when Maria was here and we had an intern working on updating the easements on our webpage.
His name, yeah.
But his name was a different name
It
too.
was. What do you mean?
But what happened to the documents that he used to update? I don't know. So what I can do for you is I can check in with Brian to see what he knows, and I can try to do a little bit of legwork to see if I can find what Maria used.
Just to be clear, we're talking about the monitoring forms that we fill in each year, and then we give.
Oh, I'm sorry, monitoring forms.
Yeah. So each year we go and monitor each easement, and we fill out a little form, take some
I'm not
pictures.
familiar with that at all.
And I think Maria had started at some point, like she was scanning them and putting them in. I thought she was putting them in e-track it, so if anybody pulled up the information about that parcel, it would be with the parcel information, but I'm not sure if it's continued that way or not. And
I
But
doubt
maybe
it.
Brian knows because
Yeah.
Joanna said she was giving them to Brian. So
Yeah, I doubt it, but monitoring forms.
Mhm.
I can check with Brian to see if he knows anything. I'm not familiar with it at all, and
Yeah, I
trying to
can-
think. I'm trying to think with Track It how to try to look up these easements or try to see if they're in there. Let me think about that and see if I can figure out a way to go in and do a search, maybe run some sort of a report for the properties that are in Track It. I don't know how far Maria may or may not have gotten if that's what she was doing.
I can send you what the forms look like too, Racine, or some examples.
Yeah, will you do that for me so that I know what I'm looking
Absolutely.
for? That would be very helpful. And at least, but well, you guys meet every other month.
Yes.
Okay, most definitely by the next month. But send it to me, Joanna, and I'll see what I can find out for you, and I'll get back to you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, but I think that's probably a good thing to sort of, in terms of procedure, to get straight is sort of where do these live at the city, on the track it? Is it some other server you guys have? And then should we have a backup? I've kept all the ones I've ever collected since I've been here, but I don't have all of them the last 3 years. But I I'm happy to share again what I've got.
My suggestion would be if we're the board that is the last point of really caring about how the annual easements are going, maybe what we ought to do is when the easement time period is up, whatever our deadline is, we take a meeting and we review them and we document that we did and we put it in the annual report, which we haven't done so far, the results of them. I mean, that I don't think we did. I should know since I've drafted it a couple times, but I don't, but you know what I mean? I don't think we make ourselves crazy if there's nobody in the city who cares. We're the last people who cares. Well, that's good. I mean, we care, right? And we're smart people and we're monitoring. I just would make sure before we torture ourselves, there's really a need for them. And that's out of my department, but I think we could do a little better at saying, this is our job. And, it was completed and here's what we found, and get that in the minutes, get it in our annual meeting. So if anybody wants to know, is somebody pulling it all together? We are,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. Oh, sorry, Linda.
I was
Go
just going
ahead.
to say, I think from my perspective, that's a good, another step to do is just, that's part of the activity of the board, I think, for the year. And you could, even say, found satisfaction, monitor such and such site, found no infractions or something. But just to kind of be clear, these monitoring reports are, kind of part of a file and evidence that one would use to say, oh, there's something wrong here. There's a violation. So it's sort of part of a real estate file, if you would, where there might be a legal action on it. So
Yeah. No, excellent.
Yeah,
point.
that's pretty much what I was gonna say was like, I think that's fine to attach it to the annual report, but we need to have it somewhere more accessible because I don't know what happens to those annual reports after we file them either. I mean, I think that's even more like hard to dig up again if you need to go back and reference something.
That's a good. I do think they
So,
are.
I mean, like,
those.
what's that?
I think they are starting to post the annual reports. I feel like
Okay,
Hillary
well,
put out something
then
about
maybe that's if they're online and kept online, because that's another thing is that like a new administration comes in, then they change what they are keeping online. Like we've had that happen as well. But I mean, the thing is that we're trying, like, especially we use them to when we go out and monitor to see what did we see when we were out here in past years. So we need to have them easily accessible somehow and retrievable. So I don't know, like I think there's good reasons to have it attached to the annual report, but I think we need to have it somewhere else as well.
Right.
oh yeah, I was picking up on her idea of just listing that we did monitor,
We did
like
it.
we
No, I
monitored such and such sites, but the actual report, should live in
Somewhere
a file with the file for the easement, wherever that is.
Yeah, because we don't actually sit down as a board and say, our work is done. Here's, every easement was fine, this one had a problem. So I just think that would be a piece of making it official that we cared about those easements at least and pulled them together. And
I like that.
We have done that because we've talked about where there were infractions and putting the layer together and having the layer go out. Like, so we've done that.
Yeah, I think, we've definitely talked about it. I don't know if we've ever like documented it in a place where, like another board could pick it up and look at it, or another board, and future board members could pick it up and look at it, or city staff. So if you guys are up for it, I like both of those ideas. I think of putting it in the annual report, just something simple, kind of like you talked about, right? Like
a chart that
these are good, these are satisfactory. If there's any major problem, we could list it there. And I think also figuring out where these could live so that they're easily accessible. I think for the board members, I think you're right. I can't remember which of you guys talked about this, but I've wondered that too. I have my records of places that I've been, but it'd be nice to be able to check back, to have that record as a board member to see what was seen last year, what did we suggest to them, what's been done. And I don't know, I guess that's something. Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
I just had a suggestion.
Thought you were just saying hi.
No, the Arts and Public Places Commissions, I believe they established a city Google Drive account that all the members have access to. So we could reach out to the IT department, see if you guys could do something similar.
Yeah.
And then that would
Great
also,
idea.
if it's maintained through our IT department, it would automatically be backed up on our servers.
That would be awesome. And would that be, when you say IT department, is that Sean or is there another?
Brian Paquin is the manager.
Okay.
But Sean is also part of the IT department.
Okay. I will follow up with you guys because that sounds like, does that work for everybody? A Google Drive? I see. Do you have something there, Linda?
No, I think that works. I was curious if Ashley, when you go to, for instance, pull a copy of the easement and easement, I think you had done that maybe a while back and circulated some. Did you just go and pull the recorded easement, or there actually is a file for that easement, like with the city legal department? Like you store records, or is it just recorded?
I've started my own personal records in the law office. So I have a physical hard copy file with all of the originals that I was able to find.
Gotcha.
I've also maintained electronic copies of all of those, but I could easily upload those all into, I think I have them in a Google Drive, but I could talk to the IT department about a specific Google Drive for you guys.
Yeah.
That we could put things in.
That would be great. Yeah.
And that way it would be something as board members come and go that at least our IT department would be keeping an eye on it as well.
I think that would be great. I really like that idea. Okay. I might follow up with you then, Ashley, on that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll talk to Brian tomorrow.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Okay. That's good. I also want to say, Tom, I see that you're here too, and please feel free to pipe in at any point. Thanks for joining us. Yes, I think that's Tom. Okay, and Tom, if you are speaking, you're on mute. I was just checking. Yeah, there's no chat function. Oh,
If you call in from a landline, you do just star 69, just if he doesn't know that. I mean, star 9, I think it is.
okay.
It
I
looks like
don't
he fell
know.
off
I
the call
think I just
anyway.
scared him off. Did I scare him away?
Yeah.
Oh man.
hit the telephone symbol and went away, huh?
I know. Well, he was on for a period of time at least.
He actually joined shortly after we started. He's been listening.
Okay, great. Well, at least we can note that in the minutes, Tammy. I'll make a note too that Tom was here. Okay, awesome. This is really good, guys. I appreciate you talking through some of these procedural kinds of things. So I think it'd be great to get all of our ducks in a row here. All right, so I think that's everything that I had kind of thoughts about the easement process. The only thing which we kind of touched on a little bit was So we did write, we drafted a letter that we wanted to send out to all of the owners or managers of the properties, that we would be monitoring. That was terrible. But I think the problem we kept running into was we didn't know who to send it to in a lot of cases, because it was a neighborhood association or something that either that person had left our original contact, that type of thing. So I think, I guess a question for you guys, I think it would be good to try to do that, to be able to send a letter in advance, letting them know we're going to be doing the monitoring, send a letter on the back end saying, here's what we found, if there are any concerns. But I think we are going to need to do some legwork to figure out who are the people we need to be contacting. What are your thoughts on doing that? And then I'm curious to see if anyone is interested in volunteering to help sort out who are the right people to reach out to.
Is there any way to that, don't take that as a volunteer response, is there any way to simplify that? And when we go out to monitor, say we've been here, because you agreed, finding the owner is like a needle. I mean, owners hide behind LLCs. You don't even know who they are if you find them, but there's usually a property manager or some kind of something around in many of them, some of the places. I mean, wouldn't a simpler thing if we had a nice letter and say, we've just been here, we'll thank you, we'll let you know if we find something, and we just put it in what looks like the appropriate spot when we go there? Is that a silly idea? It's going to be so hard to track down those owners. We have a couple of those sites, and it's not because we're hiding out, but the legal name is One Purpose LLC, and that doesn't even lead you to that you want to talk to Homes for America. It just leads you to but you could deliver it to the management office. They know who the owner is, I mean, I don't know. That's a complicated one just to get to the point to being able to deliver a letter. Now, I'm not denying we should know that in case there's problems, you should be able to communicate to the owner. So, but what a task in some cases to figure out who does own, who owns it. Yeah.
Yeah, Linda?
I mean, I'm not familiar with, sort of all the different ownerships of our existing easements. What comes to mind is, if it is a homeowners association,
yeah,
I can see how on one hand that might be difficult because they use different management entities. But I think we just have to try our best to find that. Do we have any properties that are that are just individually owned, that are not part of subdivisions? Because that would just be the property tax records, pulling the,
I think some might be
and
county.
if it's an LLC you just send it to the current address on the property tax bill.
I think I don't know, Linda, we might have a couple that are single entities like you're talking about. Like I think of the Bayview, I think it's Bayview, right? The assisted living facility, that would be them, I think, is who we would deliver it to. I can't think of any easier ones like that off the top of my head, but I
think some are owned by the county.
Mm-hmm.
Right, this is Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Sorry about this. Hi, sorry about unplugging from you. I got too excited. I actually hit a wrong button. The Munns property also, since, they were still in the, you're not wanting to give it to the city, but are willing to give it to the county. But, so that's another little oddball that's out there.
Yep.
Just while they're talking about tax records and how and who takes control.
Yep. So I think.
Are we sure the city doesn't have a list, at least of most of them? Because I thought that they've sent letters in the past to different owners. I don't know. Or maybe that's gone with, as staff have left, they've taken that info with them. I don't know. But I feel like they had that info in the past.
When I first came on board, Jan, Remember him? Jan?
John? Yeah.
He had a spreadsheet. It wasn't complete, but he had shared it with me in terms of who owned the properties. He didn't have them for everybody, and that was 5 or 6. I don't remember when that was, but at the time it wasn't. He didn't have them all. So I think if there was one, I'm gonna guess it might be a bit outdated.
Do you still have that? That might be a good starting point, though.
Yeah, I'm sure I do. I'll just have to look through my files. I remember looking through it last year or year before, and it wasn't quite as, there wasn't actual like address or phone numbers. It was sort of just, you know, who it was, like a community association or something, but I'll dig it up and I can share it around.
I just think of all the things to kill ourselves doing, that would be lower on my priority. Certainly, if we find a easement with a problem, we need to focus on it. I mean, I've got the ideas of letters and all that was wonderful, but given unless some real manpower from the city wants to do it, I just, well, maybe somebody else, but that would definitely not be my cup of tea as a volunteer activity. And I don't know if it's others. I mean, it seems awfully time consuming just to write them we were here and everything's fine, thank you. I was one that thought that was a good idea, but executing it, but you know, we certainly, nobody could say we shouldn't know who owns our easement. I mean, but the city should know that, right? They're the ones who create.
Well, it's about who owns the actual piece of property.
Yeah, that's
so
what
I think you're right in terms of like a follow-up. I don't know that is a customary practice to say that but on the front end, I mean, I think it goes to, first you have to look at if the recorded easement actually has a noticing provision about notice that you're going to come out for monitoring. And if it doesn't, then that's not a requirement, but I'm willing to do a little bit of legwork to see if we can fill in some of the blanks. Because I think it is a good idea just to send a letter. It keeps up the communication. Sometimes that prevents problems.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's very noble. I won't try to, I will say no more. That's great.
No, it's work. I mean, I think there's
I do think when the city hands over a property that they've required to be an easement in a subdivision, it certainly should come with the information about the name of the owner. Wouldn't they want to know? You know, it's we get most of that, do we not, through their requirements?
It usually would be the onus is on the entity that owns that land to update their information with us, but it doesn't always happen.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, just as one example of how this can get kind of complicated is that, you know, we had that one easement off, it was like kind of near Brewer Avenue and Woodlawn. I think it was off Woodlawn Avenue and the Homewood neighborhood. And it was a parcel that a private landowner had subdivided and built like 4 or 5 houses. And then the forested stream corridor on that parcel had an easement put on it. Well, then they died. Their children inherited the property, didn't even know they owned it. And then some trees fell down and neighbors had the city go out. They had Jan Van Zupten, who was the city forester at the time, go out. And he called the property owner to let them know he was going to be out there. And they were like, what property? We don't own any property over there. And so, you know, so that's kind of like the example. So, you know, and then subsequently our board got involved and had that because that property owner wasn't interested in owning the property anymore. We ended up having it transferred to the city. So now the city owns it fee simple instead of having an easement on it. But it's just an example of like how this can get like, even though the city might have known who owned it at the time they acquired that easement, it gets lost over time.
Yeah. No, I think it's, yeah.
Well, I totally can see that reminding you know, owners that there's an easement. I mean, you know, in my organization, something like that can be forgotten in a eye blink, right? You know, I can just imagine sometime going out to homes at the Glen, the Writer's Glen easement, finding the management put a playground on it because they never heard of an easement. They, you know,
It happens.
nobody, you know, the staff, I mean, that just gets, that kind of thing just could easily get lost in the shuffle.
It happens a
Nope.
lot, and then more significant problems than that. So I think it's a good
Yeah.
stewardship sort of activity to make sure that we keep reminding folks, like, you've got this, and here are the terms of it. You know, I think back to some of the conversations we've had recently with sort of the Kingsport Community Association. I think, you know, that's a complicated easement and everything that's in there, and where it is and where it's not on that property. And so I think it's helpful if we're able to sort of remind and hopefully prevents any kind of future problems with any of the easements. So
Certainly talked me into the importance of knowing who owns the parcels.
no, I think
A
it's
lot more
good.
than just the letters. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be. But yeah, so Linda, I might follow up with you to see, how we could start to work. And again, I think a number of these things, we don't have to get them done the next month. Let's just start to pick at them and sort of just get everything up to date and get some of our records in the city Google Drive. I think that'll be great. So I appreciate that suggestion, Ashley. All right, so that's really good. So the next item I had on the agenda here to talk about was, last time I mentioned creating a document called Rules of Procedure for the Annapolis Conservancy Board. This came up recently again with the last sort of Kingsport sort of case, the easement complaints that came up. We are supposed to have rules of procedure. I think that's in the ordinance that created the Annapolis Conservancy Board. Ashley, jump in here if I am not speaking correctly, but I think
It is in your code, in the city code.
Ordinance didn't feel right. The city code. So, and we don't have that document. I think from my point of view, kind of going through that process and not having any rules of procedure, I think it would be really helpful to have them and help keep things from getting more complicated than they need to. So for example, like when we had that complaint come in, we didn't have any sort of process set up right in terms of, well, who speaks at the board meeting and who doesn't? Who do we invite? How long do they talk? Just what does our due diligence need to be? Who does it? Is it a city staff? Is it me? Is it any board member? So I think kind of clarifying some things like that would be really helpful. And again, obviously it's in the code, so we should probably get that up and running. So I wanted to see from you guys, what kinds of things do we need to have in that rules of procedure document? There was a draft that Ashley sent out a few months ago. I can send around again. That's one that I think another board uses. I don't think those procedural rules were all kind of applicable to what our board deals with. But it could be something for us to start with. But I wanted to see, for me, the one that comes to mind is when we get an easement complaint or like an easement request. What's the process that we follow for city staff and for the board? What are the roles and responsibilities? We just talked about another one. We were talking about easement. I think reporting of easement monitoring is one we can lay out in that kind of a document, right? Like it's going to be kept on the city's Google Drive, and we're going to mention this and this in the annual report. Are there other kind of, practices that we need to document that come to mind?
This that we have in our hand, I guess you must have sent it out recently, because I wouldn't have been able to find it if it was the first time you sent it out. But that was the draft based on some other groups. Is that right? Is that what this is?
Probably, yes. If it says rules of procedure.
Of us, of the ACB, yeah.
Yes, but yeah, it's very much just, I think, and Ashley sent that around. So if you want to speak to that, Ashley, I think it's pretty much sort of a template that other.
Yeah, I think I pulled maybe the planning commission with the understanding that it wouldn't fit you guys perfectly, but it would at least give you some thoughts. And then if you guys, I can always legalese it if you guys provide me what you want.
That sounds good.
This is Linda. So that's interesting. I do remember seeing that. And I think I had in my head at the time, that was about meetings. But now I think I understand you better, that it's how we make decisions. Maybe.
So,
So
well,
we could start adding different subject matter, like how we evaluate the easements we want to accept would be.
that's a good one. Yeah, that's an interesting one. How to evaluate easements we would accept.
Or that we pursue too, because
Yep.
that seems to be, yeah.
Or
How we
pursue.
how we add new easements, basically, right?
Yeah, so I think so. And let me check that with Ashley. So one thing is we have the bylaws, which I can send around to everybody again. So I think we don't need to repeat what's in there. And I think most of the stuff related to meetings is there, that we're holding them bi-monthly in a public location, those types of things, quorum and voting. So I don't think we need to put that in the rules of procedure, that type of stuff. I think it's more, what did you say, Linda? Like
meetings, she said.
Yeah, or the type of stuff we should.
Well, I think of it as policies.
Yeah, I think so. Does that resonate, Ashley, or anybody else who does rules of procedure for boards here?
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, I use planning commission because they make advisory decisions, which would be similar to what you guys do.
Okay.
Arts and public places would be similar because they do an evaluation process for what art they accept. So that would be a different genre from you guys, but they also go through a process like that.
That would be neat. Yeah, okay.
So I think you definitely need something where you make your formal, and you could also talk to Terry Lomax, who does the Maritime Advisory Board.
Okay.
They do a lot of formal recommendations. So he could maybe give you some thoughts on, again, a different arena, but they do provide a lot of formal recommendations to city council.
And are there, do they have rules of procedure that are online somewhere, or should we?
I'm not sure. Arts and Public Places definitely does. Planning Commission does. I don't know if the Maritime Advisory Board does have formal ones, but they definitely have I would say an informal process that they definitely have down.
Okay. What's your process for making recommendations to the city? Is that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Joanne, I don't know if this is helpful, but perhaps as a homework assignment, we could each take the sample ones, identify some items that we think are either not relevant or we personally don't think ought to apply to this board, cross those out, but then write you some of these kinds of what it should cover to cover our unique nature of work. I would certainly be happy to do that in before the next meeting or something. I mean, I think it's something more productively done if we each just sit down, write down our assorted thoughts of what we would want in procedures and what we wouldn't want. I noticed, for example, something I hated, which was chairman can only do 2 terms. A board this size would run out of people willing to be chairman pretty fast, I think. I mean, I think we could just go through the standard ones and say, we wouldn't like this. We would think this doesn't apply to us. And then suggest new ones. Maybe you could maybe send us all a little homework assignment memo.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think some of those in here and a number of the pieces from the Planning Commission look like some of the stuff that we have in our in the bylaws, but there are a couple of things in here that probably would be good to think through. But yes, so I think so Ashley and Racine, I might reach out to you guys if I can't find for some reason any of these other rules of procedure.
Yep, planning commissions, arts and public places, and then I was also thinking liquor board. They all definitely have theirs on their city web pages.
Okay.
That
would be
liquor
easy.
board's also a different one, but they do a lot of regular decisions where like there's an applicant, they discuss who's going to talk, who's going to present when they make a decision. And all of theirs are online too.
So yeah, we can shoot those around to you guys, and I think do kind of what you suggested there, Trudy, which is let me know what you like and these three that you think apply to the Annapolis Conservancy Board, and then what's missing. And I think I'm going to write the three things that come to mind that I would in particular be curious of hearing what your thoughts are what we've mentioned. So how to evaluate easements we would accept or pursue. I think that's a good one to think through. What's the process when we get a complaint on an easement? And the other one is easy. It was just how do we record kind of the easement monitoring that we do, which I think we sort of talked through that. So that'll be an easy one. But I think those are three good policies that will work for us. Yeah, and I appreciate that, Ashley, and others suggesting the other boards to look to. I think that'd be really helpful.
Be right back.
Okay.
Don't wait
No
for me.
worries. Did you have something you wanted to add, Linda?
No, I think it will go in there. We'll just, yeah, suggest it's under the, accepting or pursuing, and then when it gets to negotiating the easement terms, how do we decide on the key provisions?
That is all new. I know that will be exciting if we get there. I think through that, right? That'll be nice. Okay, easement monitoring. So that's really good. Thank you guys. I'm excited to sort of get all this stuff straight. Okay, so I don't see Jackie, which is okay. Because I think a number of people have participated, and we can start there. The next thing I had on the agenda for us was, I think as a number of you are probably aware, there have been a couple of community meetings held for Hawkins Cove, which is that parcel that we have monitored that's owned by the city. It does not have an easement on it. It is sort of right next door to Truxton Park. I think it's about 14 acres and it's wooded. So it's probably, I'm going to go out on a limb, and this is probably wrong, but it's probably the largest piece of wooded property it doesn't have an easement, and it's not, it's not slated for development or anything. That's probably wrong, of course, but anyway, it's a good size for, I think, the city of Annapolis. It's been used sort of as a trail to go between Truxton Park and some of the neighboring communities. So it's an actively used piece. There's been restoration there by Spot Creek Conservancy. They recently tried to put a bridge up and sort of formalize that trail a little bit. This is one of the properties that we've talked about as a board working to create an easement for, so that it remains sort of natural and for the community. It isn't, sold off in any future years for development. And so I wanted to check in. I apologize, I was not able to attend those meetings. There were several community meetings. I was going to ask Jackie for an update. But I think Linda, Karen, or Racine, or any others that may have participated, I'm just kind of curious to get a sense of what folks were interested in doing with the site. And should we, as the Annapolis Conservancy Board, make some kind of formal comment or letter, or what do you guys think?
Can I
So,
speak a little bit more about the background of our board's involvement with Hawkins Cove? Because
Absolutely, sure. Is that okay? Racine?
Yep.
I'll jump back to you.
sorry, Racine, I didn't mean to
It's okay.
interrupt.
Okay.
Because for many, many years, we thought it was an easement. We monitored it as an easement. It was given to the city when August Woods Apartments was built,
Okay.
or those townhouses. It was either that one or the Spa Cove Apartments. I'm not sure, but there was like one of those developments back there. This parcel was given to the city as part of that development process, and that's why we thought it was an easement for so long. It had signs up, even the Conservancy Board signs, and we monitored it as an easement for many, many years. And then, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we I think maybe even when that intern, Maria Broadbent's intern, was putting the easement documents together, we found out that it actually was just owned in fee simple by the city, and it didn't have an easement on it. That was when we started pursuing trying to get an easement put on it, because we wanted to make sure that the city didn't try to sell it to a developer. And then on a separate track, we have been for many, many years trying to create a trail connection through there. And we spent like an enormous amount of time with the City Department of Public Works trying to figure out where boundaries were and where private property was, to make sure that it would be like, if people cross through there, they would be entirely on public property and not crossing private property in the Spa Cove apartments. And we finally figured that piece of it out, that they can go out to the sidewalk and that it's all public property. It's for a long time, they thought that there was a piece between the sidewalk, like a little sliver between the sidewalk and the parcel that was part of Spa Cove Apartments. It took a long time to figure out that that wasn't the case. And it took getting to the right person at Public Works. But anyway, so that's sort of our history with it, is that, you know, that this has been a parcel that we've been watching for a long, long time. We've been interested in creating trail connections through there for a long, long time. And we also pushed to have it included in Josh Cohen's transition team report about using it as a place where it could be another like street end park of some sort. Although I don't think we like ever really wanted it to be, I don't know, my impression was that the board never intended for it to be like a developed park, but, you know, more like a trail connection, the way people have been using it in the past. So
Karen, I think I'm gonna write this down. We also should get like Karen's history of each easement written out, because I think, you know, if for some reason you decide to step off this board, that's gone. I didn't know some of those pieces. I think it's important, you know, to know the history. So I'm gonna put that down on the list. Maybe we'll
part of it is because it was my own frustration of like how long it took us to find out where, you know, that there wasn't the sliver of private property that we needed. I mean, we spent, I mean, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but we like spent a lot of like years on tangents of trying to figure out also how to like provide cover for liability if we wanted to allow the public to cross private property so that we could make this trail connection. And then it turned out that they didn't have to go on any private property anyway.
Well, that's important though. It's a lot of work that was done. We don't want to have to do that again. That was great. No, thank you for that history. Yeah. And then, yeah, Racine, do you want to give us an idea of sort of where we're going? Where this
so Karen mentioned the trails between Truxton Park and Hawkins Cove. And while the trails are not a piece of what we're specifically talking about now, it could be sort of a phase 2 piece of the Hawkins Cove project, where the trails are somehow improved or you know, made better and easy to use. But right now, what it is, Jackie wrote a grant to the Chesapeake Bay Trust for the design and permitting of the Hawkins Cove project. We have, what we wanted to do was make sure we incorporated the residents that really make use of the area, but it's not we're not excluding other residents throughout the city of Annapolis. It's just that the focus was on the residents nearby and what they might want to see. There is no consensus right now on what exactly is going to go in there, but whatever goes in there is going to have an ecological or environmental uplift to it. So we're talking about perhaps putting like a living shoreline in there or something like that. There's a pier there that is in need of repair. The question is whether or not dredging is going to take place. Are we going to make it so that boats can easily come in and out? And maybe, you know, one of the ideas was that the water taxi is able to pick up and drop off there. But again, there's no consensus outside of the environmental piece, there's no consensus on what else might go there. It looks like it might just end up being a spot where you can go and see some wildlife, see some birds, maybe be able to put a rod in the water and do some fishing. Having the living shoreline. We've talked about the planting of native plants and creating pollinator habitat. The habitat itself will be great habitat for birds, and we're a bird city. But you know, that the grant was submitted on the 4th. So we probably maybe a month and a half from there get back information on whether or not we got the grant, and we would take it from there. We do plan on having other additional community meetings. We by far are not ending it with the writing of the grant as far as getting input from residents. So the communication between the city and residents is gonna gonna stay open. So hopefully we'll get the grant funds. If we don't get the grant funds, we're gonna have to think of where the funds are gonna come from instead. We have our watershed restoration fund, but a lot of that money is already spoken for stormwater projects. So I don't know if we might, I mean, if we don't get the Chesapeake Bay Trust grant, that might be someplace where we would find the funds, but we would have to find the funds somewhere else if not. But this is what we're looking at, is a living shoreline or something similar, clean up the area, make it accessible, make it beautiful again, make it a spot where you can, you know, just be in nature for a few minutes, just off the beaten path of cars going by. So that's pretty much where we stand now.
Was the grant proposal to get funding to do a concept design of what would be done for the park, or was it to actually do a full design engineering for like a stream restoration?
I think what we're going to try to do is a very basic concept design. Okay. And we were talking about somehow getting that concept design put onto a sign so that residents of the area might walk by and be able to see what might be going in. And because we haven't gotten a lot of good feedback from the residents, but we also had a short time period that we were working with. But it was suggested that if people can see what's going on, then it'll be easier for them to have an opinion about what's going on. So yeah, there's going to be some sort of there definitely is engineered designing that we're looking for funds for, but we're looking for a very basic concept design to start everything rolling.
Gotcha. So yeah, very preliminary.
Yeah.
So I guess, so I'm thinking for the board, it sounds like, I guess number one, see if you hear back, see if you get the grant. And then if you do, it sounds like there'll be a series of community meetings that are part of that. And then we could participate as part of that, I guess.
Exactly.
That's sort of what that is.
Yeah. Karen's been to at least one or two of them. So
I think Linda too.
You have representation.
Oh yeah. No, you guys
Yeah, I was listening in on one. Yep.
And I'm sorry. Yeah, I will.
I would like to suggest that the board, I think that we should go look at it. And I think that we should put a letter together of like to the city, just reminding them of our interest in this parcel and our history with it. And then what we would like to see there, because I'm just a little concerned, like, because everybody's forgotten that we've been trying to do this for a long time. And I'm a little bit worried that we might get steamrolled by the excitement to like put a lot of concrete there and like how,
Oh, yeah,
like,
we really are not trying to resurface the area. We want it
Yeah.
to stay in as natural and pristine a setting as it can. Karen, you
that's
might
good.
know about this. Jackie and I were talking the other day, but I wasn't familiar with exactly where she was talking about. There is a piece of land or property that I guess if you're at the cove and you're looking out, it's up to the right where development could take place. And she was talking about putting that piece of property into an easement so that no other developments can take place for waterfront property there. So Jackie is already looking at extending an easement in the area there.
Yeah, I wonder where that is. I'll have to look.
I think it's actually on the left when you're
Is it the
looking out
left?
at the cove.
Okay.
Yeah. And because that's the parcel that we had monitored, like we thought it was already an easement. We monitored it for a long time. But yeah, that's why I think we should all go out and just look at it.
That'd be
And
good. Yeah, be good.
yeah.
Take a peek at it again. I like that idea, and just sort of writing up some of this information I think is helpful. I like that idea too, Karen.
The only thing you said that made me go, ooh, was the idea of water taxi. To me, that's totally contrary to this sort of peaceful return to nature for the walkers. You know, I mean, it's such a precious left piece of nature that's quiet. I mean, a dock that, you know, with a bench that you could sit and watch the nature, but yeah, I think we would have various opinions. I've been there recently hiking, and but I'd be happy to go again with the group. But yeah, I see that very much as a last nature, very, very quiet nature place myself. We've got Truxton Park. Does the water ferry go to Truxton Park? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a boat launcher somewhere just around the corner,
Yes,
so to
yes.
speak, in Truxton Park. So making it a place where you can launch your boat and things like that is something that we're suggesting it not be, because you already have some place where you put your boat in the water and take it out. I mean, right now there's a lot of sedimentation that's taken place in there. So no boat traffic is taking place there. So the question is whether or not, I mean, that would mean some dredging would have to take place. We don't know if that's going to happen, if it's going to be necessary. We're not saying exactly that's what's going to happen. We were just saying, give us some ideas of what you might want to see as a resident that is participating and using this area.
Has the issue of the concerns of the Shearwater people for the runoff at the edge of the Shearwater properties, that's in any way got folded into this discussion? Because part of the reason I was there was my Shearwater friend said, we're going for a walk. We're going to want to, and it clearly is a problem for that cove as it's going to fill up. And just, has it gotten to the expansion of the area next to the cove, which is damaging things as well, or?
Yeah, well, I've already met with some people from Shearwater Condos about a potential project to fix their issues.
I see.
It's very close to where the work is and could get folded into this project. I'm not going to say for sure that it is, because I don't know. But Shearwater Condos, we are in contact with them.
Fine.
They are part of these discussions.
Good.
So how it all works out, I'm not sure, but they have not been forgotten.
And it's probably their obligation to coordinate their plan and the expense of doing it with the whole project. But if they knew that the whole cove was going to benefit and be improved, maybe that would inspire them too. So, yeah.
Right.
Good.
Right.
So two things that come to mind. One is Karen, would you be willing to just sort of email, organize sort of a trip out to Hawkins Cove property? Sorry, I blanked there for a
Sure.
second.
Sure,
Okay.
I can send a few dates and see.
That would be awesome. Okay.
I wouldn't mind going with you if you want to include
Okay.
me in.
Okay, yeah, that
That'd be
would be
great.
awesome.
Could we wait, could we just wait long enough to see if we get the grant so we have a sense that we've got a meaningful, or is that gonna be waiting too long?
I'd rather do it sooner just because my availability might change. But if that's
Yeah,
okay.
I would also say, I think
Okay, that's fine.
obviously if we get the grant, great reason to have a better sort of read on the property. I think there's other good reasons too as well. As we talked about kind of last time, we've been thinking about getting an easement for this property, and I just started some conversations up again with MET, just really
Yeah.
preliminarily email, and said, could we set up a time to talk about working with you all to put easements on properties owned by the city. This is one of the ones we talked about before. We will probably be talking about again. So we haven't gone anywhere with it, but I think if we want to keep pursuing it, so yeah, it's a good idea for all of us to be familiar with what's on the site, what we want to see for it, just to start thinking about what are the terms of that easement? What do we want to have in there?
It's been at the top of our priority list for years, so.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so Racine, that is definitely something we can keep thinking about, is sort of the time frames of that. Obviously, easements typically take a long time to go through. So I don't think anything's going to happen in the next month, for sure. I can say that with 100% certainty, I would say. But yeah, just to make sure that we're doing this in a way that complements what you guys are doing and vice versa, I guess. I certainly wouldn't want it to be, you're trying to have these community meetings and, what are you guys interested in? And it's like, oh, we put an easement on it, it's done. Like the decision's been made. Yeah, so we'll just have to think through, and I checked in with Jackie and she said, go ahead and start chatting with MET. But yeah, let's definitely keep just checking in on that. So I definitely don't want to get.
I actually had a question about MET. They hold some easements, right? Or do you work with them sort of hand in hand on some easements?
Me personally, or does
the board
process? We have had conversations with them in the past, and we do actually have, I think, an old MOU that I can dig up, and actually I know right where it is. I was just organizing my files. I can send to everybody. And I don't know how much it says in there, but sort of an agreement between the board and the city, I guess, and the Maryland Environmental Trust. So yeah, I think that's the history as far as I know it. And Karen, definitely jump in here. There was sort of a MOU that was created to sort of, work together. We had conversations when Maria Broadbent was here about creating an easement. We sort of ran into a couple of barriers, which we've now kind of gotten past.
Yeah, I don't think they hold any easements, but we do have an MOU with them.
Yeah, I don't think I was trying to think if there are any. I know the Scenic River Land Trust does, but I don't think Maryland Environmental Trust does.
MET may be a good source for you with you putting together your procedures for the board.
Yeah.
Because they do a lot of what you would be doing, right? So I don't know what's on their website, or if you know anyone there, you might be able to ask some questions over. They might be a good source to help you out putting together what you're working on.
They have a lot on their website.
They do. We've looked at some of that stuff before in terms of like what would you give to a landowner, or what is an easement, those kinds of things. But this would be a good thing, I think, to ask some of the staff about. Yeah, what are your procedures when something comes through on an easement that you hold? Yeah, just to help us think through that. It's a really good point.
To digress back for just a moment about the cove and thinking about it in the context of our goals and the city's goal, the mayor's goal to increase access to water, I think one could argue that that's a good thing all over the city. Most of them are sort of what I would call hard access. And this would be a rare opportunity to have a nature access to water. That water is more than Eastport parks with paved parking lots and things. I mean, I just think it could be, I can't myself think of quite a public access potential that's as passively nature oriented as that one. Maybe there is some in the city, but they don't come to mind. I live by the Tucker Street. Well, that's a busy, urban activity of boats and people and stuff. But anyway, I think you could paint a lovely picture of the Hawkins Cove in the context of the bigger plan, but showing people what nature access might look like, But anyway, I just digress. Seeing Karen with her water access issues, I brought it out in me. I was very proud of you.
Oh, thanks. I've always
Oh, you go, girl.
careful what I say.
Was there something in the paper recently? I'm behind on my papers. I'll have to look it up.
In the paper a couple times.
All right. I've been stockpiling the newspapers. I'm going to try and get through them this week. That's great. Okay, yeah. So that sounds good. Does anybody have any questions or other kind of points, things we need to keep in mind as we move ahead with thoughts on Hawkins Cove?
It's very exciting. We're making progress. We have a bridge. We have a movement. That's great.
Yeah, I'm excited, and yeah, Racine, I've added you to my little ACB listserv. I apologize.
Okay.
I kept forgetting. I thought, oh shoot. So yeah, I've got you on there, and definitely, yeah, let's, I want to make sure we're not doing something that hurts your process or anything in that way. So don't hesitate to reach out and say, what are you doing? That's fine. Always open to that. Yeah, this is exciting. I agree, Trudy. I think this is a lot of really kind of fun stuff that we're really getting into.
Yeah.
I know we're getting close to 7. I try to keep them to 7 when I can, these meetings. I'll just show you one thing that I started, and I shouldn't even say I started it. It's really nothing at this point. But I thought, to make the annual report that we developed a little bit more active, and again, this is nothing very impressive. So we can make it more detailed as we go along. But what I thought would be good is to go ahead and take all of the goals that we had for this year. Let's put them into some kind of chart. Think about what time frame we want to try to start working on them or achieve them. And just have a place to sort of document what progress we're making, and just to make sure we're checking up on the goals that we kind of wanted to work on. Something very basic. All I did was just take the goals and throw them into this little chart here. But I just wanted to use this to kind of, get us thinking about which of these things are sort of already taking place, our priorities, making sure we don't forget to move on some of them, keeping track, that kind of thing. And I don't, like I said, I know we're getting close to 7, so I don't want to kind of belabor this, but I just wanted to walk through these with you and get a couple quick thoughts, and show you what we've got going. I think this first one here, we want to work with the city on clarifying boundaries of existing easements. So that's something that we talked through. We're going to be working on developing and adopting rules of procedure. We talked about that, right? We're going to get that rolling. Working with the city, developing easements for those city-owned properties. We're starting that discussion up again with Maryland Environmental Trust. So we'll, see where that goes. We're going to try to set up a meeting for that, I think, in early April. And I will send that around to folks. Anyone that is interested in participating, you're certainly welcome to. So I'll share that with you.
Before you leave that little box, John, could I just make a friendly amendment that now that there's so much planning activity too for the Cove, some expression of our intent to participate actively and assist in the planning process as well. Because I think if I understood Karen's comments, we want to continue to be a face and make suggestions and be active.
Should we call it improvement? I'll put improvements, but we could change that later.
Yeah, that captures it. Yeah, just.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that's important. That's good. I'm just going to put that in green, so I know it's a new thing. Yeah, so completing the development of the initial Annapolis Greenway map. So that's sort of moving ahead. I can give you a quick little update on that in a minute. That's something that's moving, and I'm not sure where the timeline is now for completing the comprehensive plan. I think probably May, June, the last conversations I had. So, we're still working with that timeline with the city. Looking for public access and recreational trail opportunities on existing easements, kind of starting really with that Hawkins Cove piece. I think that could obviously easily be part of these conversations we're having with Racine in the planning process. Filling the 1 to 2 vacancies on the board, that's definitely something to think about. If you guys know of folks you think might be interested in, or organizations to reach out to ask if they have staff or people they know of that might be interested in serving on the board. It sounds like from the last conversation we had, and Ashley, jump in here again if I speak out of turn, but I think it's okay for us to reach out to folks to, suggest they reach out to Hillary if they're interested in joining the board. And it's okay for us to suggest people for Hillary to consider. They obviously, the city makes those ultimate decisions on who they accept onto the board, but it's okay for us to sort of go out and try to see if there are people that might be interested in.
How many
joining the board.
vacancies do we have now? I've lost track.
We have 2.
We have 2.
Yep.
Hi. Oh,
Just keep in mind, they have to be a city resident.
Nope, important point. Yeah, that's a very important point. Yeah, so I'll just make a plug there. If there are folks you guys think of, don't hesitate to reach out and let them know they can get in touch with Hillary and tell them what we're about. I might reach out to some folks I used to work with at the Chesapeake Conservancy, and maybe some of the other organizations around the area for residents who might be interested in joining a board like this. But just want to make that plug. If there's someone you guys know of, don't hesitate to reach out to them.
well, and you board members who are more in this field than somebody like myself. I mean, I just think every time we get somebody like Lynn or Karen or, that are in this field, we are enriched. And that's all.
I appreciate the thought.
I think sometimes when we've had members who weren't sort of in the field, they were sort of lost. And I know I thought I was sort of an odd fit for this. I've warmed to the topic and learned a lot, but I think somebody who can tell us, like Lynn, here's the way something works, or Karen, that's very, very helpful. The more expertise we can get, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And diversity.
Actually, I think like, it doesn't necessarily have to be environmental expertise, though. I mean, having legal knowledge or like, real estate knowledge, like Trudy, you have real estate knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's helpful as well.
Yeah, sort of.
No, I was thinking the same thing, Karen. I totally agree, Trudy. It's really helpful to have some folks that are in the field and are familiar with and can share that kind of expertise. But I do think there's a real value to having folks that aren't in the environmental field, thinking about things differently. You've got different concerns that you're bringing to the table. I think it's really important to keep those in the conversation. And like Karen said, there are different expertise that are really helpful in this kind of work that some of us don't have, that work in this field. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a real estate person, so those are important qualities. I think
we have 2, at least maybe one could be. I mean, I consider myself a true citizen appointee. I mean, that's fine that I can tell you how land works once in a while, or real estate, but in one, maybe that's more a citizen, and we've got to get some diversity on this board too.
Yeah.
So
I agree too.
Maybe even another man we might diversify. But I'm less interested in that than other kinds of diversity. But I mean, I think having a few goals for this board, maybe one more person who knows something about the field and another good active citizen might be good. But anyway,
I support all those ideas. And what comes to my mind in terms of a citizen is just someone that knows a lot about the ins and outs of Annapolis and is talking all over the the little places and thinks of connections and connections and
I agree. And I feel like I don't have that. I know things right around where I live and where I'm around most, but But the history that Trudy and Karen, you guys are able to bring is really helpful.
I'll tell you though, being on this board will get you that knowledge pretty quick. I feel
Yes, it's helped me.
Sorry,
Yeah,
my
it's been
dog's barking,
great.
but I feel like I learned where all those little connections and little tiny pieces of land and things are from being on this board.
I did
Looking
too.
around.
I thought I knew the city, but you've taken us into some ravines and gullies that I never knew existed.
That's true. Yeah, no, it is. It's been really neat for that. I've enjoyed that aspect of it a lot. So, I know it's hard sometimes to think of the individuals, but yeah, I do ask if there's someone that comes to mind, please reach out to them, and I'll do the same. I'll try to think about this a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll try to help on the citizen side too and see what I can suggest.
Yeah, what comes to mind? So that's definitely one I think to really keep working on. Yeah, every time we're meeting, really keep that one front and center. We talked about better informing and engaging property owners and their easements. How to do that. And Linda, I'll be checking in with you about how we can figure out who are the right people to work with. Coordinating with city staff and volunteers to maintain and improve the areas monitored by the ACB. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that one. I think that's one we can keep poking at this year, and certainly as we continue to monitor things, pointing out which ones we know need those kinds of improvements. And also, as COVID restrictions ease up, it's easier to have those kind of volunteer events and things that we've thought about doing in the past. So in my mind, that's kind of been a factor for, waiting on that one a little bit is the COVID restrictions and being able to have enough people out there to do some work on some of these properties for invasive species. But jump in here if you guys feel like we should be prioritizing this or putting this more to the top of the list. That sounds okay. Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. It'll be interesting, I think, as we talk through with the Maryland Environmental Trust, we'll be looking at their easements that they typically create, what their easement template is. Ashley sent us the easement template that she has kind of worked off of, which I can't remember if that went out to everybody, but I will send it around to everybody. But I think thinking about what is the model template for new easements that we would either get voluntarily or that we would kind of work to create with a landowner who's interested. What are the terms that aren't in these easements now that we want to get in there? I think
this is a question off target for that one, but how come we have all this new development in the city and we don't get any new easements? I mean, we haven't gotten any new easements since I've been on the board, which is quite a few years now. Have they stopped requiring easements? I mean, there's new development going. I mean, I read the track and my gosh, there's stuff going on everywhere. But
so I certainly don't know the answer, but that, Trudy, is a great transition to another goal that we have here, which is to cooperate more with city departments, including planning and zoning, have a conversation to understand when is an easement required. And is there room to talk about that, or to make some suggestions there? And how do those easements overlap with the Forest Conservation Act requirements was another piece. So I think that might be an interesting topic if you guys are open to it, to maybe invite some of the planning and zoning staff to come to one of our next meetings and have that be a topic of discussion. Just so we understand what is the current process and where is there opportunity for more discussion about that, or how can the board interact?
I mean, because I know that new housing development that's going up behind the budget rent-a-car by the Monarch School, the old Capitol site. I do remember the conversation we had and I do know the people developing it, that they have an easement, but it didn't seem to come to us. Where did it go? You remember we talked about how the mayor wanted this trail that would go there and it could go down this easement. So even when there seem to be easements, they seem to don't come to us. So that's just I'm all for, let's understand what's going on about the creation of easements, and are we being put out of business? Who's managing these easements? So where are they? Yeah.
Are they? No, I think these are great questions. It'd be good to have that kind of discussion. And does that feel right to do that in one of these meetings, or does that need to be a separate thing? What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's part of this box right here, you know, what's going on, what do they require, how do
Yeah.
they, to whom do they get assigned? I assume the city maintains the, I don't know, you know, but no, to me, those are the people who ought to be able to answer it if anybody can, right? They're the
Yeah.
planning department, they must.
Yeah. Do you all like the idea of inviting them to our next meeting? What is this, March, April? So that'd be like a May or?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we can outline some group questions for them in advance too, so as
Yeah.
much as they could prepare, so
That's a
we
good
could get
idea.
the real answers, not, you know, they'll get back to us, you know. What
Yep.
easements have we had in the last several years? Where did they go? Who were they assigned? You know, just, we can help you, give us a homework assignment to help ask questions maybe that we could get to them.
Okay.
Because they
Uh,
probably have to do a little research too.
Yeah. No, that's helpful for everybody if you let them know what you're going to be asking about, so that no one's caught, flat-footed. It's a
Yeah,
great-
this isn't a gotcha quiz, this is.
Yeah. That's not fun. Yeah. Okay. I like that idea. Okay. All right. So I think that sounds good. Do we want to, is there anything for updating the model template for new easements? Do we want to put that on one of our future agendas for us to talk about, and as kind of homework we could send around what we currently have?
I'm not sure I know quite what we mean by that. Could you take a minute and say, what do we mean by
Sure.
that?
Yeah. So this actually, yeah. So Trudy, one of your comments when we were looking at the Kingsport easement through that, that whole easement complaint situation sort of sparked this, I think, which was realizing what was and wasn't in the language of the deeds and the easements for some of these properties, right? I think there are a number of people on our board that thought public access was a component of the easement, and it's not. And so, yeah, so what are the terms that we're requiring each easement to follow?
Okay.
And Linda brought up a couple things tonight. I'm going to get the wording wrong, Linda, but you mentioned sort of, listing what is that process, or who are the people you would go to that own the property. I can't remember the terms that you used. But anyway, there's some things that are in some easements that we don't have in ours that could be helpful for us.
Yeah, I think I had looked through some of the existing easements that were circulated. I think that was Ashley. And, those are easements that are taken as part of a development process can look very different than sort of a proactive, voluntary easement donation, in part because the IRS will have certain requirements, but it is also an opportunity to set up different terms. And so whether you're a nonprofit or a public entity that is a conservation easement holder, you generally have your template that you polish up from time to time as you learn new things. And you start with that so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it has all the legal language, basic legal language in there that you need. But then you're negotiating certain terms based on the property attributes that you're working on. So I think if we might look at the model the city uses now for easements taken through the development process and say, oh, that looks sufficient. But we might want to also look at developing a new template for voluntary easements that will likely look very different. And MET would be a good example.
Yeah. And so, again, I don't think this is anything that's an absolute immediate priority in the next 2 months. I don't think we're going to have probably an easement, ready to go in the next couple of months, especially a voluntary one coming through. But I think it is good for us to start having these kinds of conversations so that we are ready when those things pop up. And I think it's good as we have these conversations with the MET to know what things we do and don't want to keep in an easement template. I'll give you an example that came up when we had this conversation before, We've looked at the Back Creek Nature Park, I think, and potentially create an easement there. There's a long-term lease to the Annapolis Maritime Museum, I believe, on that property. And as part of that lease, they want to be able to use the space for events, helps them raise funds and things like that. There are certain restrictions in MET easements that prevent certain kinds of events. For example, weddings are not allowed, at least at that time, on, I believe, MET easements. Now, I may be wrong at this point, but that was one of the discussions we had, and realized, like, okay, that might not be appropriate then for Back Creek, because there's already a long-term lease, and that is something that that leasee is planning to do and needs to do to, you know, maintain their budgets. So there are things like that that do come up that it's good for us to sort of think through, you know, about public access, about these different sort of requirements. So I think it'd be good. I think what I might do is I might put that maybe on the agenda for like a you know, kind of July discussion, or maybe May. Something, again, we could each look at the current easement template that we have, do a little bit of homework, like you suggest, Trudy. What things do we think we'd like to add, or at least talk about if we're to create a new easement? Yeah, and then we can sort of go from there. How's that sound? It's a plan of action.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think the idea of taking our goals and making them a chart, and maybe look at them briefly at the finish of every meeting and see, you know, record if we made any progress. I think that's good. I think sometimes we kind of haven't steered ourselves with as much discipline towards what we're trying to do, and
It's easy to.
it's
yeah.
easy to get going and
Yeah.
talk and thrash through some of these issues in detail, but we kind of like, this helps us keep a somewhat bigger picture of what we hope to accomplish.
No,
And that was a big deal for us, wasn't it? Or to get these goals, as I recall. And that was, Karen would probably say, well, we did that 3 times for the last decade, but for this generation,
Sorry.
Karen. I think we've probably done everything 3 times in this board.
You know, hopefully we'll get some recording down, and we can prevent that again. But yeah, Karen, thanks for hanging in there. I know we've rehashed a lot of conversations you've already had. But yeah, no, I will. Yeah, I'll start writing up some notes in here, and we can kind of update it each time, so we can keep track of where we are and where we're going to go. So I'll work on that a bit. All right, I'm trying to think if there's anything major we want to share. I don't think there is. I mentioned to you sort of in our update section of the agenda. So for MET easements, we're going to try and schedule a meeting with some folks at the Maryland Environmental Trust, a virtual meeting in early April. I'll let you guys know the dates that we start shooting around. We've got a couple I can shoot to you now. If anybody wants to join, I think that would be great. The greenway map is moving along slowly. I apologize. I had a February that got away from me. It was a bit busy, so I'm going to try and come back and make sure we keep moving on that. And I'll be reaching out to, we had a little subgroup that was willing to work with Linda and Karen on some of the next steps for that greenway map. Anybody else wants to join, please let me know. Always welcome. And then any questions with those 2 items? Sorry, I'm running through fast. Okay, and then MOU with the county. I think Ashley is Ashley still on? She's the one who kind of knows where that stands. I think she's popped off. I checked in with Ashley earlier this week, and I think the MOU is being looked at by the county's Park and Rec department, I think. But it sounded like things are moving forward. It's just slow.
like years slow, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's the sense I got was positive. I think both sides are interested in moving forward, at least my initial impression. I think it's just, yeah, it's one of those things that's probably not on everyone's top priority list. But we'll keep poking at it. I'll keep checking with Ashley. She's been really great about checking in frequently with the county, I know, as well. Go ahead, Linda. Sorry.
Oh, it's funny because I didn't think I was, I had a thought, I wasn't planning on saying anything, but is that with respect to the coordinating on program open space fund?
Sorry, thank you. You are correct, Linda.
Okay.
I saw you come off mute. That's how I know sometimes when It seems like people are thinking they're going to talk. So sorry. Yes, this is an MOU between the city and the county so that we could more effectively use the program open space funds that are dedicated to the city when we need them and for what we want to use
Right.
them for.
And I will just make a plug that there is going to be more federal money for local parks and trails coming soon. So,
Is that in the COVID relief bill too?
well, actually, my organization is trying to get it was trying to get into that bill, but now in the infrastructure bill. But no, this is more regular order stuff through the National Land and Water Conservation Fund. There's funds that flow to state government that local governments can apply for, but then also a huge ramp up in this program that's specifically for local government, a little bit to bypass the state government to apply to the National Park Service. It's called the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Program. And it's going to be a huge ramp up. And it's really where you can tap into a project that will serve an underserved community. It would be helpful. So
That's significant. Wow.
That's exciting to hear, Linda.
Yeah.
I get little bits and pieces here and there about all these things. So I'm excited that's still in the works. That's wonderful. That a question comes to mind, and we don't have to get into a lot of discussion about it, but just are there certain things like training or updates, things like that, that will be good for this board to hear that you guys would like to know about? I work with a number of different funding sources that can help with some of the work that we're doing. Linda definitely has a better pulse, sense of what's going on at those levels she's talking about with policies or at the federal and state level. I don't know. I think about, training or educational opportunities for the board. If there's anything there you guys are interested in.
MET, years ago, MET did a training for urban land trusts that some of us went to. That was really interesting. It was up in Baltimore, but so it was actually a little more urban than what we deal with, because even though we're a city, we're a little more suburban feel, but it was still pretty interesting to see different things that were being done and what we could apply maybe. And so if there's something like that.
Let's ask. I think they're still doing, I don't know if they're doing it as often with COVID stuff, but I know they've done some virtual ones, but they do trainings that they offer, I believe, for free. I'll have to double check on different topics. And be interested to see if this is one that they're still, putting in their circulation, or if not, maybe we could just have a couple people come talk to us about it.
yeah, we could look at putting together a list of training opportunities we see on the horizon. If folks have different ideas, a couple of things come to mind. And with everything going virtual, sometimes it's free. You can hop on. There are sort of in the conservation world, broader world, there are conferences going on that are, free and virtual these days. So the Virginia conference will be coming up. The National Land Trust Conference will be coming up. And that will give you a window into more of the voluntary side of the conservation activity. And sometimes there's an urban focus to different sessions.
I know. Yeah, I'm wondering if so some of those, I don't know about the Virginia one, the national one, you usually have to pay for. I'm wondering if there's a way to get some stipends or.
I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're doing it virtual again, but what they did last fall was it was just a $75 fee, which for that conference, it's usually several $100s. But and they do, there are opportunities to get, I think, stipends.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. If you guys are interested in that, we can, hey, Karen's dog, we can look at some of the opportunities. And there are these like really small grant funds, like MET has one, I forget what they call it, and somebody else has one, like Forever Maryland Foundation has these really small pots of money for things like that, for training opportunities for land trusts and things. So we can always look at that.
Well, and maybe it goes in connection to our talking about 2 vacancies and the kind of folks we might like to get. I think what It's not in our goal, but I think that recognizing that it's kind of a confusing, it's getting less confusing who we are and what we do, I think, over the years. But I found it a little like, what do we exactly do here? What, and just some kind of little orientation program of
Perfect, Trudy.
How I mean, it's fun to hear Ellen Moyer claim I guess it's true, we were the first urban land trust in America. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know, but anyway, I think we should keep that, and maybe then helps them find somebody, get to a training session about what our land trust, because I mean, I started out pretty cold, and it takes it would help. It would help, just to understand a little more and kind of what we do. Maybe not to put a burden on somebody, but maybe we got 2 new members. One of us could just sit down and plan to do a little background, probably Joanne, the road leads to the chair, but it's just like our history and our background, just to remember that new people do need to have a little help in framing up, because our world is pretty weird with, easements that some people have, other people easements that flows. We don't know who has them and how they get created. And, it can be a little head scratching. So anyway, it's all related to the training background for our members.
Trudy, I love that idea. I've been thinking about that a lot, especially with Linda. And I feel terrible that I have not, we've had a couple of conversations, but I'm going to try and schedule sort of a more in-depth one with Linda to give her all the information that I know.
Are we about to get any new members? Do we know if anything is cooking at all? Because it'd be lovely if you could get 3 people and, give them some.
That would be great. I haven't heard anything. I can check in with Hillary. I don't know.
Do we know if any names have been suggested by us or anybody? I know being on our board is just the hottest topic in town, but
I reached out to a couple of aldermen to ask if they knew anybody, but haven't heard anything.
Yeah, okay. I can ask.
Because I know one of the things they try to do on boards and commissions in general is try to have each ward represented, and this commission, or this board in particular, has never really had a very good distribution in that regard. But so I was trying to reach out to some of the aldermen for wards that have, as far as I know, never had a member on this board, to see if they knew anybody, but I haven't heard anything back from
you did
them,
your
so.
part, Karen. You moved out of Ward 2, so there wouldn't be 2 of us who went to Eastport just for the board, didn't you?
Well, except that I think Jay Baldwin was still chair when I did that, and he lived in Eastport. So
No, this is I think that's good. I'll check with Hillary to see if there's anything cooking. You never know. And Karen, thanks for doing that. That's a great idea, is to check in with them. Maybe they'll come back with some thoughts. We'll keep thinking on that. I like the idea of an orientation kind of thing, Trudy, and I thought it'd be really nice to have something simple, just like a Google Slides, like PowerPoint slides, right? That just say here's what the mission statement is in the code. Here's what, and that we're in the code, the city code. I think we're the only board, or maybe 1 or 2 boards, I can't remember, that are actually.
Is it too late to add a goal that we are going to do that? Because that's something we might be able to, as you call, pick away at, and make some progress.
That's a good idea.
Without brain damage, just sort of put together a training. Let's hope we get 2 new members. And Linda doesn't need much, but a little bit of our history maybe.
Linda will be fine. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, we'll work on that, Linda. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I just added it, and I'll
because I just thought from time to time we've had members that have come and gone rather quickly who look mostly confused, time or 2.
It's a lot at once, and if you're not familiar with just easements in general, even what they are, I think that's not something that most people are that familiar with.
Yeah.
It's a good point. No. All right. I think that's all. Those are all the updates and questions I have for you guys. I really appreciate it. It's been a great meeting. I feel like just thinking through some of the gaps we have and how to fill them and how to start taking next steps. So I appreciate you guys talking through that tonight. It's been really helpful. So I think it's going to be a good year for us. It's going to be a good year for the Conservancy board. Yeah. Not that the others weren't, but I feel like we've got a lot of really good things cooking here. So yeah, thank you guys for hanging in
I
there.
think, as I've told you before, John, I think you're doing a great job of leading us
Oh,
to.
that's kind. No. I appreciate that very much. But thank you guys for working on all these things. This is exciting. Any other questions, thoughts, or things you guys have?
Strikes me we're lucky to have Racine too.
I know. I'm excited.
Nice to have a really informed participatory staff person. That's a
Yeah,
breakthrough.
I gotta get my feet wet though. That's why I want to go with you when you go to
Yeah.
I think that would be
Hawkins
great.
Cove and whatnot. I want to be involved.
Oh, that's awesome, Racine. Yeah, I'm really excited that you're working with us too. It's great. So thank you. And and I'll also make a plug too for Ashley. I know she's popped off, but
Yeah, to have her attention too. No,
it's
I
been
think
great to have
yeah.
that. I don't know whose decision that was at the city to assign sort of a law person as a liaison to each board, but that's been really helpful, especially as some of these easement complaints have come up. She's been a lifesaver. I know certainly for me to make sure I don't step in it. So really
Step in Racine's water or something else.
anything really. It's been, so I really appreciate it. I do feel like the city is really making some changes in an effort, and I just saw those emails come out from Hillary about trainings coming up that any board can participate in. So I feel like.
Do you think maybe, since we never have given you enough work tonight, do you think maybe it's time to write a letter or send an email to the mayor and the deputy and the city manager and say that to them? That how much it's been helpful to have actual staff and actual.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Maybe we need to stroke them a little bit, because goodness knows we worked a lot of years trying to get a steady staff attention. So maybe we ought to just a simple email to just say we really appreciate it, that they're good participants.
No, I think that's always a nice thing to do.
I think maybe it's time.
Don't
you love the way I can think up tasks for you?
You wait, Trudy. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to turn it back around. I'm just not good at it. But yeah, no, I do think that's a good idea. And I have been really grateful. And I've noticed that, Hillary's putting together more trainings for boards and getting us organized and writing to all of us at once. And just all those little things do really add up. So I think it's nice to point that out. So I appreciate that. All right. Okay, anything else?
Dinner time. Ding, ding,
Yep.
ding, ding, ding.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there. I really appreciate it. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, there we go. First from Trudy, second from Linda. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Tom, are you still on? Tom, are you able
I'm still
to say,
with,
oh, great. Are you able to say aye?
yes, and I from here too. I mean, the mute really appreciated my efforts.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Have a really great rest of the week, and I'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Terry.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.